March 20th, and I call the Committee on Housing and Homelessness Prevention to order. We are going to switch up the order on the agenda a little bit and start with Senate File 2681, Senator Kunesh's bill. Welcome to the committee, Senator Kunesh. Whenever you're ready, please present your bill.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chair and Committee. Senate File 2681 addresses a pressing need for Minnesota's manufactured home residents by providing essential funding for down payment assistance and cooperative ownership. It ensures long-term affordability and financial security for low and moderate income families. Senate File 2681 will allow for greater flexibility in cooperative conversion when parks come up for sale and allowing opportunities for resident-owned communities. I represent District 39, and in every one of my communities, New Brighton, St. Anthony Village, Columbia Heights, and of course Hilltop is its own little community, Spring Lake Park and Fridley. Every single one of those communities have manufactured home communities. And we hear about the struggles to just maintain the quality of life when the owners are not there to make sure that the pipes are up to date and working, that the sewage, that the roads are in good shape, all of those things. But most importantly is the ability to afford this very affordable living. When I was first elected, there was a community called Lowry Grove on the border of St. Anthony Village and New Brighton, Northeast Minneapolis, that got sold out from underneath that community, and it was devastating. It actually resulted in 2 suicides. And people that were displaced, and because of not only the age and the condition of their home, were not able to go and purchase another manufactured home. So that community was dispersed to the wind, and it was, as I said, extremely upsetting and had such negative effects. So Senate File 2681 is aiming to preserve affordable housing and expanding those home ownerships. Most importantly, it would provide $5 million for down payment assistance, and this bill ensures more families can afford to buy homes in those communities. It closes the financial gap for manufactured home buyers because unlike traditional home buyers, residents of manufactured home communities lack access to conventional home loans and down payment. These aren't mobile homes, manufactured homes are not considered a home in that you can go and get a mortgage on them. And so even though we provided $25 million for manufactured home lending in 2023, $15 million of it was redirected. And that left cooperative home buyers without essential funding. And this bill would provide a targeted solution, ensuring that those home buyers have equitable access. And then, of course, it supports resident-owned cooperative. We have cooperatives in my district. My very good friend Natavi Dodd is the one that put it together, and it just makes so much sense when residents can purchase their manufactured homes as cooperatives. They end up gaining long-term control over their communities, thus preventing that displacement that I mentioned and the rent spikes that we have been seeing so incredibly. A $5 million investment in a revolving loan fund will allow those organizations like North Country Cooperative Foundation to continue supporting those transitions. And of course, we want to make sure that there are long-term affordability and community stability investments to prevent future crises, saving those taxpayer money by reducing the need for emergency housing. And so with that, Madam Chair and members, I have 2 testifiers here with me, and I would invite them to share what they've got to say.
Thank you, Senator Kunesh. We will move to testifiers. First on the list, I have Emily Stewart. And for all the testifiers today, I would ask that you stick to 2 minutes. We have a longer list in some of the other bills. So Ms. Stewart, if you would please introduce yourself for the record and then present your testimony.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Emily Stewart. I'm the Associate Director at North Country Cooperative Foundation. As you may know, Minnesota is home to 805 manufactured home communities, providing 44,000 units of affordable home ownership. Manufactured housing is one of the last remaining naturally occurring affordable housing options in our state, offering home ownership at half of the cost of site-built homes. However, the affordability of manufactured housing is at risk because homeowners typically do not own the land underneath their homes. They are vulnerable to private equity, private investors, infrastructure neglect, and community closures. In the last 2 decades, we've seen private equity firms drive up land prices. Manufactured housing communities have appreciated in value by 478% in the last decade, making them one of the fastest growing commercial real estate assets. Resident ownership is the answer. When homeowners collectively purchase their land, they secure long-term affordability and control. They determine how their dues are spent, ensuring investments in infrastructure for future generations. Your investment in the 2023 legislative cycle of $10 million has already made a significant impact in the revolving loan fund. We have deployed and committed $4 million of that to preserve 254 home sites in 4 communities: Alexandria, Breckenridge, Zumbrota, and Fairmont. That's approximately $15,000 per home site for that preservation. Our loans on average are at a 4% interest rate, well below market. And in our most recent deal, we provided $300,000 of deferred interest capital with no principal and interest payments for that 10 years, reducing the projected lot rent increase at time of purchase from $135 down to $75 per households. That's $60 per month or $720 per household per year. That's money that's staying in families' pockets for food, medicine, and other essentials. However, we're facing a new challenge. Minnesota Housing was partnering with us on these projects, offering first mortgage financing that we paired with our subsidized debt. Due to the changes at the agency, we have lost them as a partner for the foreseeable future. As a result, our loan fund is having to play a much larger role in making these projects work. Without additional resources, we might not be able to secure resident ownership for all those that want it. So we are now back asking for another $5 million for this revolving loan fund, not as an abstract request because we have a pipeline. Without funding, these communities are at risk being sold to investors. They are subject to higher lot rents and possible displacement. The time is now to act. I urge you to approve this funding and continue Minnesota's leadership in preserving affordable homeownership. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Next on the list, I have Jason Peterson. Please introduce yourself for the record and present your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Peterson. I am the Executive Director with NeighborWorks Home Partners. Our organization is a certified community development financial institution and lender here within Minnesota. We provide a wide array of down payment assistance programs currently, offering in over 7 different products right now and closing over 500 down payment loans a year annually. We do have the capacity to utilize these funds for the purpose named in this bill. We have 4 licensed loan officers on staff and currently work all across the state closing down payment loans. I want to speak quickly to the need for this program. We do have a lot of experience in the down payment assistance space. There are not down payment assistance programs available for manufactured homes. We are working right now with North Country Cooperative Foundation on creating an innovative new first mortgage product. We will hope to be launching this spring. We're really excited about this program. It's going to be one of the first in the nation, but we need, there is still no opportunity to pair that with down payment assistance, and down payment assistance is really a key need for this program. So today we are here to support this bill and to provide the information regarding our capacity to be able to utilize these dollars for this purpose. And we're really excited about our continued partnership with North Country Cooperative as we are helping resident-owned communities all throughout the state in what is really one of the truly last affordable home ownership opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. Members, discussion. Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Port and Senator Kunesh, and to all the members of this committee who have co-sponsored this important bill. I was born in a trailer house. I lived my first several years in trailer house on land that the Clarks did not own. And it provided us stability. It provided us an important launching point before we moved, and my dad was able to purchase another location. And thank you, Senator Kunesh, for mentioning the important Lowry Grove neighborhood on the borders of our districts. My church helped stabilize and get folks moved when they were displaced. These are homes. These are important places, and we can help make and keep them important homes that people love and upkeep and stay in place. And so I encourage us all to find a way to get this in. These are homes, and these are loved. Let's get it done.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the strong bipartisanship of this bill. Thank you, Senator Kunesh. Madam Chair, as Senator Kunesh is aware, I grew up in Northeast Minneapolis and New Brighton. I drove by, or both rode my bike before I could drive, and then drove by it, the park in question multiple times growing up, on my way to Wyndham Park just down the road for my karate lessons. And my paper road, I don't know if it was in your district, but it's on Old Highway 8 there, if that's also in your district. So my paper route was that manufactured home park when I was younger. When I was a school bus driver, it was my kindergarten route was in the manufactured home park that is in the Lino Lakes, right off of 35W in Lake Drive area there. And when I was a Dayton City Council member, there was a manufactured home park in the city of Dayton. And then now in my capacity as senator, I have a manufactured home park in the Otsego area. As somebody in the real estate industry, this is a very important part of the ecosystem of home ownership. And so my passion for manufactured home parks stretches many years, and then in my adult life, it is one that I'm continuing to support. So I appreciate this bill. It's one that we need to continue to support. I think it's a testimony to the bipartisan authors that we see on the bill. So thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Kunesh.
Senator Pa, and also we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Chair Port. I absolutely love this bill. Being in real estate for over almost 30 years I have seen that manufactured home parks are sometimes the most affordable places to live. The people who decide to live there is because of the affordability, but if they don't have access to down payment assistance or any other type of assistance, it's going to be very, very hard. I'm so glad that this has come up. I'm surprised it hasn't before and that we've never really thought about it, but I'm happy it is today, and I absolutely support it. The question I do have is how much could one particular person who's looking for down payment assistance or any type of assistance through this program expect to get? What is there, like a range of, like, this would be the minimum, the max?
Senator Kunesh or Ms. Stewart?
I think it's
Or Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So right now, what we're looking at, in general, we're looking at average first mortgage loan amount of about $130,000 to $140,000, and we're looking at about an average down payment assistance of $20,000 or $25,000 for folks that are low income, under 60% AMI, so very low income. So it will be a need-based program, but to answer your specific question, about $20,000 or $25,000 would be the down payment side.
Senator Pa?
Thank you very much for that. That's it.
Seeing no other questions, Senator Kunesh, do you have closing comments?
Yep, I think we all can agree that this is really an important and first step in fairness, stability, and protecting the largest source of affordable home ownership in our states. This is going to make an investment that is going to have really long-term benefits for our families, because many of these are families. These are people with children. And parts of our community. And so I want to thank all of those on this committee that are on this bill, Senator Boldon, Senator Port, Senator Lucero, Senator Draheim. It just really warms my heart to hear the voices and the support of this bill, so thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kunesh. And seeing no further discussion, Senate File 2681 is laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus. Thank you. We will go back to the first bill on our agenda, Senate File 2214. Senator Hoffman. And Senator Hoffman, I believe you have an A1 authors amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Yeah, the A1 amendment, it aligns the bill with what the other body is doing at the same time, and it reflects technical changes that were needed from council.
Senator Boldon moves the A1. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment is adopted. Senator Hoffman, when you're ready, please present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I would have got here on time, except, have you ever driven to Minneapolis and they got these, it's like bike lane heaven, you know, and you end up, well, apparently you're not supposed to take a right on a bike lane, and I did. And, you know, now I'm going to have to ask the good senator if he can do something about the little piece of paper I got for him. So thank you, Madam. I'm glad you laughed, because a lot of people say I'm not funny. The thing that drives us, we get to the why, and Senator Port, you and I have talked about this a lot of times, especially when you're talking about the most vulnerable people in the state of Minnesota and the protections that we knew in place. And I heard your argument. You know, it's not that, it's a Cadillac, dude. We're just getting people to be able to survive, right? It's when the systems fail and we don't, that they end up becoming homeless. And it breaks my heart that, you know, when you look at homeless people in Minnesota, over 90%, it's actually the intersectionality of substance use, mental health, intellectual disability, developmental disability is huge. It's larger in greater state Minnesota than it is in the Twin Cities Metro. But you can say 90% of the people that are homeless have some of that intersectionality going on, right? And so the only way we know that is because of this Minnesota homeless study that's there. And the Wilder Foundation for years has done it. It drives the work that we do in the waiver systems. It drives the work that we do in human services, drives the work that we do in health, because if that information wasn't there, those people would be the forgotten people. And so I'm asking that we take that funding and put it in our system so that it becomes something that we can count on. Michelle Girard is here from the Minnesota Homeless Study to really talk about why. The why. And so thank you, Madam Chair. And also, members, in your packet there was some information, but Adrian is going to email all of you, and I know some of you that did meet with him. There's the homelessness in the Twin Cities and greater metro and the unsheltered homelessness. This gets to what that study tells us, and you're actually shocked at what you see there. And so thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. We will move to Ms. Girard. If you'd please introduce yourself for the record and then present your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Port, members. My name is Michelle Decker-Girard. I am a senior research manager at Wilder Research. I'm just trying to get my PowerPoint to work because it actually has an intro slide. There we go. And I'm also the co-director of the Minnesota Homeless Study. And Wilder Research is a part of the Amherst H. Wilder Foundation located here in St. Paul. As Wilder Research, we work with a lot of government agencies, nonprofits, and other organizations throughout the state to work on issues important to our community. And I've been working on these issues related to homelessness for 30 years. Today I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about the homeless study. I know you are all pretty aware of the homeless study, but sometimes it's helpful to ground it. And so just to ground it, we've been doing this study every 3 years since 1991. So we were sort of the first in the country to do this type of work. It's a collaboration between all homeless service providers in our state. And what it is it's a one-night snapshot. It's always the last Thursday in October. And we go to every emergency shelter, domestic violence shelter, and transitional housing facility in our state, as well as people who are vouchered into motels for the night. And then work with people who are working with folks who are in encampments, in fish houses, in their cars, staying outside, to talk with them. And it's a 30 to 45-minute interview face-to-face.
So it's not just a count, it's an actual conversation to really dig deep into their experiences of homelessness. And I should just say, we couldn't do it without the incredible collaboration of all our partners in every corner of our state. So really, really appreciate those partners. In addition, we work with 6 American Indian tribes in northern Minnesota to conduct a companion study on tribal lands. We're interviewing 1 adult per household and any unaccompanied youth who are without their parents. And I think it's a really important experience for our interviewers themselves who go out into the community and get to know the folks who are experiencing homelessness on that night. We're kind of unique in the nation. We've been recognized by HUD and federal agencies because we have this partnership with our Ojibwe nations. We first did a study on tribal lands in 2006, and they've been doing a companion study every 3 years. Because of tribal sovereignty, they own the data, and then we release it at their will. And this last study, Upper Sioux for the first time participated in their own pilot. And in our next study, there are plans for 10 of the 11 tribes to participate if we're able to do this study. So just a quick overview of what we do. It's about 5,000 interviews on that single night. Those 30 to 45-minute interviews at 400 sites throughout our state, every corner of the state. And about 1,000 interviewers. Some of them are our staff. It's like at Wilder, all hands are on deck that night, but also a lot of community organizations, churches participate as interviewers for the study. We're kind of unique. So it's these comprehensive, deep questions where we can dig in deep into details. It's a connection with folks to tell their experience. Their interviews are confidential. They don't give us their names. And so we feel like folks have the opportunity to share their stories without fear of repercussion. The data is able to give us historic trends over time. So we really know, Minnesota kind of knows what's working and what's not because we've been able to sort of like establish that through the data. We're also inclusive in the study. We don't have a lot of other data in our state where we talk about people who are temporarily doubled up, which is a huge issue in our population, and also a very precarious group of people, as well as our domestic violence shelters. And then another really unique thing about the study is we don't just ask about last night, where were you last night? We ask about where were you in the last 30 days? And what we're finding in our state is people are cobbling together different situations each night to find a place to stay. So they might stay one night with a friend, one night in shelter, one night in their car, and then back cobbling together another place for the rest of their experience for the month. And just so you know what resources are available from the study, so on our website, mnhomeless.org, we have our issue briefs, the homelessness in the Twin Cities and Greater Minnesota brief that is being emailed to you, and the unsheltered issue brief, as well as data tables by every continuum of care region in our state. So our 10 continuum of care regions have data for every question on the survey by gender and by why, how many days folks have spent outside. So how is the study used? And that's part of why we're here today, is it's got widespread use throughout our states. It's used to inform a lot of things. So understanding trends, and I can talk a little bit about that, focusing solutions and policy, important to you all, programming for all our 400 programs throughout the state, public awareness, and funding. And in your packet are some of these quotes that I'm going to be sharing today, but they're attached in your packet too. So a little bit about trends. So we have all kinds of trends, and I've just picked a few to share today. So a lot of people just care about the numbers. We really want to emphasize that our study is well beyond just the counts. We're getting in deep about who is included. Every story is an individual story. Every solution is a unique solution. But as you can see, the last time we did the study, last October 2023, we had a slight decrease in the numbers, but it was still the second highest level that we've seen since we started doing this study in the number of people who are experiencing homelessness. And I think it is a surprise to people that we have nearly 3,000 children that night of the study who experienced homelessness in our state. And we always say for our counts, they're a minimum. So we're this population, so it's everybody who's staying in shelter. We are definite on that. We do a count. But for those who are unsheltered or moving around a lot, that is a number that is really hard to count. So we just do our best. We do it the same way every 3 years, so we're confident in the trends, but we feel like it's a minimum. And so just another trend I wanted to show you, just to show like what the data can do. We're about to release a report on older adult homelessness, which is the fastest growing population of people experiencing homelessness. It's also a fast growing population because those of us are aging. But we did see a big increase between 2015 and 2018, 25% increase in the number of older adults experiencing homelessness. And again, it increased since the last study in 2018. So this slide I just wanted to show you just so that you can understand what you can do with trend data. The other really important use of the data is focusing solutions and policies. So during this last study, we were really concerned as a state about people who are unsheltered or experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And like I said, one of the questions we asked on the survey is not only where did you stay last night, but where did you stay the last month? And what we see in our state is about 6 out of 10 people who are homeless spend the last month in shelter, which is great. That means that there is that safety net and they're getting that type of care and connection to stable housing. But 39% are staying at least one night completely unsheltered, outside, in their car, camping. And 23% are staying 15 or more nights outside. So a disturbing trend, and those trends are going up. So when we're thinking about focusing solutions in policy, we dug into where were there differences between greater Minnesota and metro? Because sometimes policy focuses on one or the other, and so we really wanted to dig in deep on that. And as you can see, the data shows that in greater Minnesota, there's even more of a need for shelters. More people are spending time in their cars outside or temporarily doubled up. So a gap in services for that population. And another thing we wanted to dig into just to show how the data is used is how programs use it. So every program in our state uses the data to help inform their own programming. Recently we met with a large group of older adult providers to go over the data with them, and they really wanted to think about health issues. When you think about homelessness, you don't always think about walkers or people who have diabetes and need insulin or people that need oxygen, but that is something our shelters are dealing with, particularly for that older adult population. So we did dig into whether or not folks were in greater Minnesota for that data or outside the metro. And you can see for the population who is 55 plus, they have higher needs than the adult population. And here are just a few of the quotes of how the data is used. Again, that is in your packet, but folks in organizations throughout the state use the data to inform their programming and focus services. And then another use of the data is just in terms of public awareness. One of the great things about our state is our public really is involved in issues and cares about issues. And Homeless Study has been helpful in that over the last 30 years in telling the story of homelessness in our state. So the studies team does presentations all the time to community groups, faith communities, local organizations throughout our state. And then the data is used as objective data from media outlets to include in their coverage of the issues. And then in terms of public awareness, the impact on 1,000 volunteers every 3 years who are sitting down and talking for 45 minutes each with people experiencing homelessness. And every story is something that touches your heart and makes you more knowledgeable about the issues. And then finally, in terms of funding, the Homeless Study is really leveraged by different providers to access funding resources, to really diversify funding. So for private funding, for philanthropy, for individual donors, for faith communities, a lot of the organizations use the data to tell their story in order to access more funding beyond government funding. And then for our partners who are in philanthropy, they also use funders to target particular needs. So some philanthropy is really focused on youth homelessness and can really target that through our data, or older adult, or family homelessness, or homelessness among different communities in greater Minnesota or the metro. And we've been told that it has been really helpful to be used in very specific situations. For instance, Metro Transit asked for us to do an analysis of people who use the green line, so people who use transit for shelter when they were going to close the green light overnight. And so we were able to identify the needs of people who use transit for shelter so that Metro Transit could have case managers to help those folks who were using transit for shelter. Another example of that is COVID funding. So when COVID happened, the state had to do an application to FEMA, and we were able to analyze data on who was at risk most for getting COVID. So who had the worst health issues and that type of issues, so that we could do the application for FEMA as a state. So why are we here today? So getting down to the nitty-gritty. The study is at risk at this point. For years, we've had a fairly consistent public-private partnership in our state. It has been a lot of different state agencies coming together to fund this study. And what we found in recent years, basically over the last 3 studies, is that's been getting harder and harder to cobble together. It takes a tremendous amount of time for us to have conversations with the different state agencies to figure out who's doing what and when, and them having the conversation. We just need to figure out how to streamline the bureaucratic approach. The state has been funding the study, and this is just to streamline it to help ensure that the study continues. It also allows some funding to help us work in community. So a lot of the homeless providers throughout the state are really stretched thin. And so we've been doing a lot of extra efforts to provide support for them, including telephone interviewing of their folks in their shelters if they can't find folks to interview them at very rural locations, and a lot of technical support for those organizations throughout the state to include them in the study and tell the story of all 4 corners of our state. And then, of course, the funding landscape has changed since we first started doing the study in 1991. Philanthropy was very involved in the study and its initiation. It's not the shiny new object anymore. And so it's sort of having that consistent funding over time to make sure that we are able to do this study. So just a quick, before I wrap up, I just wanted to just mention that we have some reports that are about to come off for the last study. So an older adults report, a report on Native Americans, a report on adults with behavioral health challenges, chemical dependency, and mental health issues, and issue brief on youth age 24 and younger. And with that, I just wanted to thank you all for being here today and caring about these issues. Really appreciate it. I just want to say that we don't take coming here to the legislature lightly. This is something we've tried every other avenue that we could think of to try to make sure the study was shored up. And at this point, it is very at risk of being sunsetted due to the disconnected funding that we have at this point. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gerard. Members, we'll go to discussion, and I will just start by saying when I became chair of this committee, Housing and Homelessness Prevention, I looked at the jurisdiction and saw that none of the sort of homelessness services are under this jurisdiction, and I was like, well, that's really connected. How come we don't see any of that? And that was sort of my first real vision of the silos that we have that are created among around housing and homelessness, and how we view them as 2 different things, even though they are very, very connected. And that, the services that we provide both to folks who are unhoused, but also in supportive housing and things like that, they are so deeply connected to keeping people housed in a way that works for them. And this study, I think, provides a really necessary picture of what the unhoused population across our state is facing looks like, needs from us, so that we can break down some of those silos that exist in this building, but not out there. And so I find this study to be hugely important to the work that we do here. I think it helps us better think of what programs we have that keep people from falling into homelessness by learning what is driving those trends. And it helps us work with Senator Hoffman's committee, who is providing the resources that folks need while they are unhoused, and how we can shift them back into safe homes, which is the goal. So really appreciate you bringing this bill, Senator Hoffman. For some reason, I'm not on it, but I'd love to sign on.
Get on it.
So we'll send you an email about that. But
You're on it.
members, discussion, Senator Bolden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman, for bringing this bill. I just will echo my thanks and my emphasize the importance of it. I really appreciate your connecting that it's not, these aren't just numbers, that there's a story behind every person and recognizing the humanity in this and people and their stories. There's a saying that we measure what matters to us, and so having this data and this information is incredibly valuable as we have a responsibility in the legislature to do something about it. And so it is impossible to know what to do if you don't have information about what is happening. And so it's just incredibly important, and I hope we can continue that work. Thank you.
Senator Clark.
Thank you, Chair Port and Senator Hoffman. In my other part of my life, I run very large programs. And every year, we send out big old surveys to the entire company to figure out how we improve it. And it's for a big for-profit company, and it's how we do our job well. And so I thank you for helping us do our collective job better, and I hope that we sure can keep doing this. I'm for it, and this is what we need to do. Thank you.
Senator Hoffman, do you have closing comments?
Absolutely. One of the I got lots of closing comments. You guys are it's invoking passion and joy to even have this conversation, but it's sad. As you know, CFR 24, that's the consolidated. Every state has to do this consolidated homeless needs assessment stuff. CFR 24, 3, I don't know where it is. It's 300 point something. But it talks about a consolidated plan. And to the point that you're saying, it's to get away from the siloed effect, right? Yet, why is it that we've had for years that Wilder's been doing this? They've been going around, and Medtronics has been, I think Medtronics might have wrote a check in the past, but different organizations doing it, when it should be embedded in the study, the work that our two committees do. It is part of my committee. I make sure it is. It's where our conversation is, and it's across the board on that one, right? That's why I think their information is very valuable. Thank you for your time on this. And the other thing I just say, older Minnesotans, 55 and older, that's the highest growing, which you guys will see that. And for the longest time, I'd say 62 and older, but it just absolutely blows me away. Because, and I'll get my pitch in here, Human Services, I'm going to do the 25%, 65%. When you take a look at that, we've known for 12 years 65 and older is going to be growing in this state. We've known the silver tsunami is coming. We've known, and it's here. And now you're seeing the highest increase in homelessness is that population, yet I'm being required to make cuts in Human Services to pay for other things. Not okay with that. So with that, Madam Chair, thank you for your time on this committee, and I hope you lay this over or do something nice with it. So
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Appreciate you bringing this bill. We will lay it over for possible inclusion in the omnibus, and thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Have a great day.
And we will go to the final bill on our agenda, 2691, Senator Boldon. And I will just let folks know we have a lot of testifiers for this bill, which is fantastic. But we will need to keep testimony to 2 minutes, and Ms. Schaaf here will have her trusty timer. And we ask when that timer goes off that you please complete your thought, complete sort of that sentence, and then end your testimony so that we can get through all of these testifiers. Senator Boldon, I believe you have an A1 author's amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do. It is a technical amendment. It adds another relevant chapter of law and changes one word for clarity.
Perfect. Senator Boldon moves the A1. Senator Lucero.
Well, you could complete your motion, Madam Chair, but I was going to add a question on the amendment.
Okay. Senator Boldon moves the A1. Senator Lucero has a question to the A1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm flipping, I think it was page 7. So page 7, line 8. The one word change, Madam Chair and Senator Boldon, you are changing agreement to offer. So it will read, upon the request of a resident, an owner must make available a copy of any acceptable offer to sell. I'm wondering if you can just explain what that means in more detail. Why are you changing from agreement to offer in the context of the seller and offer to sell?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Lucero, for the question. So yes, you have that correct. It will say the owner must make available a copy of any acceptable offer to sell. And we'll perhaps get into this as we get into the bill, but part of the point of this bill is for residents of manufactured home parks to have awareness, to be notified, to know when a park is up to be sold, and to have the opportunity themselves to purchase it. So this is relevant to that section.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so this is not, just for clarity, and this is, in my mind, I'm familiar with purchase agreement. So this is not an offer coming in and being received by the seller. This is to give the residents the opportunity to be made aware when a park is for sale, just to make sure that it's not an offer coming in, it's that the park is available for purchase.
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Lucero. Yes, the intent is that the park owners will be made aware that the park will be up for sale, and they then have, which that part is already current law, but and the extension of that we're looking to do is that they then will have the first opportunity to purchase the park, should they desire to do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, the A1 author's amendment is in front of us. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment is adopted. Senator Boldon, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. We are going to continue our discussion about manufactured home parks, which we have had a little bit today and a little bit in previous hearings. So over 180,000 people across the state live in manufactured home communities. Of these, 80% of them have low to very low incomes, and 90% of them are also homeowners. Historically, manufactured housing has been the state's most affordable source of housing and home ownership. Resident homeowners are extremely vulnerable, however, because while they own their homes, they often rent the land underneath it. And so they're a captive market because it's hard for them to move, as has been discussed. The term mobile homes is a bit of a misnomer. It can cost anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 to move one of these units, and after some time they sort of settle into the ground, so it may not even be possible. And some parks bar older homes altogether. Over the last decade, manufactured home communities have become prime real estate for private equity investors whose primary business model is to buy a park, seek to increase its value by raising the rent, adding fees, and cutting back on maintenance. Then, within a few years, they often sell it for a profit for themselves and investors. In 2024, at least 90% of the parks sold in Minnesota were sold to out-of-state real estate investment trusts or private equity firms. And as a result of private equity ownership, the lot rents have increased annually at a rate of 10%. And so there is an ongoing and persistent trend of predatory behavior from some manufactured park home owners. And so it is not something that is brand new, but it is ongoing and increasing, and it is something that is happening all over the state. So I'm going to give a few examples that we have seen. In Sartell, Minnesota, I've got a Star Tribune article here from October of '24. In Sartell, residents of a home park near St. Cloud filed a lawsuit in October against the manufactured home park, alleging abusive practices and health violations, including sewer actively backing up into several homes. It's notable that this park has changed ownership several times, including out-of-state investors, as we have seen, who had faced criticism for abuses. And in fact, this is the, one of those owners is one that actually sells a course on how to profit and make money by sort of this predatory behavior. Next, in Lake Elmo, I've got a Star Tribune article here from December of 2024. Residents of Cimarron Park in Lake Elmo have reported rent increases, in some cases of up to 30% since 2020, which has been especially threatening to the housing stability for seniors, as we have heard that growing population. Next, I've got a Star Tribune article here from just recently, March of this year. In Hermantown, there is a Maplefield Home Park in Hermantown is currently under investigation. Nearly half of the units in this park have been ordered to close due to threats to human life and safety. In Marshall, Minnesota, the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency has sued a home park, Broadmoor Valley, for predatory activities, attempting multiple significant rent increase up to 12%, announcing the park closure in violation of terms. In Stewartville, close to my district, I've got a reporting here from October of 24 from KTTC. Southern Hills Manufactured Home Park residents reported an increase in the base rent for new rentals of 74% in 2024. Next, the Attorney General's office has been involved. I've got a Star Tribune article here from September of 2022 in relation to a home park in Northfield, where the Attorney General actually had to step in and sue a management company which owned over 100 homes in this park. They were found to have imposed numerous arbitrary and cruel rules on residents. And then lastly, which is not the end, but the last one I will mention, is in Blaine. I've got a MinPost article here from May of 2021. In Blaine, in this particular park, residents described relatively stable rent increases from $405 to $480 between 2012 and 2021. But when the park was purchased by a private equity firm in 2021, the rent then saw a 40% increase after that. And so, this is an ongoing and persistent issue. Manufactured housing, as we have said, now has the highest annual returns of any asset in real estate. And there's this persistent behavior of aggressively raising rents and evicting residents. Right now, there are just 12 private equity firms that own over 1,200 parks across the country, including here in Minnesota. So too often, working class people feel like the game is rigged against them. And that's how we end up with this bill before us today. I will note that there are some parts of it that will be familiar to you, as you have seen them before in bills that Senator Putnam has worked on and brought before this committee. And I am in conversation with him, and I'm grateful for that work. This bill has some of that and also does some additional things. There's a few main parts I will mention. One, it tackles the issue of excessive rent increases by finally defining what is reasonable rent increase, which is no more than 3% annually. It creates true opportunity for, as I mentioned, for residents to purchase the park if it were to go up for sale, should they choose to do so. It creates more enforcement of laws already in place and clarifies the community owner's responsibility for things like tree care and utilities, maintenance and transparency. And it requires for those parks that have a rent portal for folks to go in and pay their rent, that cannot be the sole mechanism for them to pay rent. And if that portal goes down, if it is unusable, if the residents simply cannot use that to pay their rent, they should not be responsible for late fees related to that. So I will maybe stop there related to time, but just we know that manufactured home residents across the nation are facing unprecedented levels of threat. There are stories which we will hear that are heartbreaking in many cases, and residents who have had to make decisions about, am I going to pay my rent or am I going to pay for food and medicine? And it does not have to be that way. And so these are some common sense measures really meant to level the playing field and be sure that residents in these naturally occurring affordable home units, houses, have their rights upheld and are able to stay in those homes. So with that, I will note the letter and support from Legal Aid in your packets, and then happy to go to testifiers.
Thank you, Senator Boldon. We will move to testifiers now. Ms. Jimenez, you're up first, and after that, Andreas Hernandez. Again, a reminder to keep your testimony to 2 minutes so that we can hear from everybody who has come today. Appreciate the wide range of folks who want to speak on this bill. I think it speaks to the importance of it. Ms. Jimenez, if you would introduce yourself for the record and then present your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Port and committee members. My name is Shana Jimenez. I'm an attorney at the Housing Justice Center. The Housing Justice Center's primary mission is to preserve and expand affordable housing across the state of Minnesota. My primary area of practice is manufactured homework. I represent individuals and class action cases around the state of Minnesota, including a number of cases in the articles that were discussed today. I also speak to you as someone with lived experience. I have lived in a manufactured home. My husband grew up in a manufactured home community out in Hutchinson, Minnesota, and I have family members who are current manufactured homeowners. I urge strong support for Senate File 2691, which helps prevent exploitation and preserve manufactured housing for years to come. I am here to answer any technical questions about the bill as a whole, but I kind of wanted to focus my testimony on what I see as probably 2 of the bigger areas of conversation related to reasonable rent increases and the opportunity to purchase. In order to talk about why legislation is necessary to limit rent increases, we have to talk about what lot rent is. Unlike rental properties, manufactured homeowners cover the costs of homestead maintenance, lawn care, utilities, and even pay property taxes. So lot rent covers the dirt on which the manufactured home sits on and any optional amenities such as a pool or basketball court. Manufactured home parks are extremely stable businesses with predictable overhead costs, which the park owners themselves acknowledge. Historically, Minnesota law has acknowledged this as well, and reasonableness has been written into the law since its inception in 1982. As a result of an unfortunate Court of Appeals decision in the mid-2000s, large private out-of-state equity firms have rapidly acquired Minnesota's manufactured home parks. Their method's simple: raise rents aggressively, minimize maintenance, and maximize profit at homeowners' expense. The impact, though, has been devastating. In a case I worked on with Legal Aid in Sartell, the private equity firm neglected the water system until the sewage wastewater flooded the streets every spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. Will you be able to stay around if folks have questions when we move to discussion? Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, and after that, Natasha Adams.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Andres Hernandez. I am 23 years old. I live in Fairville, Minnesota at the Evergreen Estates with my mother and my older sister. We have lived there for the past year, and during that time, our lot rent has increased by $50. That's an 8% hike. For some, that might not seem like much, but for my family, it's a burden. I was working full-time, but due to company restructuring, my hours were cut from 40 to 15 hours per week, and sometimes I was just at home without pay. Eventually, I had no choice but to leave my job. Right now, I'm doing DoorDash and driving daily to the Twin Cities just to make ends meet. My mother also faces instability. Some weeks she works, and some weeks she's laid off. Between our rent, house payments, and utilities, we split every bill between us, and this $50 increase has made it even harder. Every month I worry, how would I pay it? What if the rent goes up again? It seems like these companies look at us as money machines instead of real people who are trying to make a life. That's why I'm in support of this 3% statewide lot rent cap. Right now, manufactured home residents like my family live in constant fear of uncertainty, never knowing when the next increase will come or how much it will be. A 3% cap would provide relief and stability, allowing families like mine to budget without fear of sudden, unaffordable hikes. This isn't just about my family, it's about entire communities as well that will be with fair and predictable rent. We can invest in our homes, save for the future, and support local businesses as well. It will protect lower-income families and retirees who rely on manufactured home communities as an affordable housing option. At the end of the day, it's about fairness. 3% rent cap would give families the stability we deserve, ensuring affordable housing remaining accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez. Ms. Adams, please introduce yourself for the record, present your testimony, and after that, I have George Zuccoloto.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. My name is Natasha Adams. My husband and I live in Brandondale Manufactured Home Park, next door to my mother-in-law, Joyce. Typical rent for us in Brandondale is about $650, but new lessees pay a staggering $1,095 per month. In December, my father-in-law passed away, and we were told by Haven Park, our park owner, they insisted that Joyce sign a new lease. And we know that her original lease that she signed is still legally valid, and so she refused to sign a new one. And of course, at that $10.95 rate for new lessees, her Social Security income would not even cover that. And the prospect of having to pay such abjectly high rents is terrifying to my family and many other Brandondale residents. I don't understand why this is happening, because housing inflation in the Twin Cities area for apartments, for example, by numbers by Marquette Advisors, they say that apartment rentals have gone up 17% since 2021, and that same time, Brandondale rent has gone up 44%. And so obviously inflation can't be the primary catalyst. Chris Arnold of National Public Radio spoke on this issue of the cycle of investment firms buying manufactured home parks, jacking up rents, making the parks more money and therefore more valuable, so that the investors then refinance and then take out a big loan and purchase additional parks over and over and over again. This is shocking to the conscience. This entire growth model is predicated on raising the rents of people who are predominantly low income. The article goes on to say that Haven Park takes federally backed low-interest Fannie Mae loans to buy their mobile home parks. And Arnold talks about the inherent irony of this, that these loans meant to support affordable housing are actually driving people to eviction. We've talked about the reason why eviction really is a reality for many of us. There are barriers to just moving the house. We can't sell it. Obviously, Brandondale new lessees, when they're looking at 1095, that's double what the parks next door would be. So why would they buy a house that is one of ours? I've witnessed this many times in Brandondale. A neighbor can't pay their rent and they have to sell it. So make no mistake, we're at a tipping point, everybody. This bill has to pass, because we're really going to have many, many more people losing their homes than ever before in Minnesota. Act now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we cannot have applause. But thank you very much for telling your story. Appreciate you coming today. Mr. Zuccoloto, appreciate you coming as well. Please introduce yourself for the record. And after that, I have Bray Melfi.
Howdy, y'all. My name is George Zuccoloto. I'm from northern Minnesota, and I've lived in Viking Terrace, one of 2 trailer parks there, for 15 years. My family moved there because it was one of the few places that we could afford rent and have enough space to grow. People who live in manufactured home parks are young people like me who spent their whole lives there, young couples, working families, single parents, veterans, people with disabilities, folks on fixed incomes, immigrants building a new life, and seniors looking for an affordable place to live. People assume that greater Minnesota is affordable, but the truth is we face the same struggles as folks in Blaine and all over. In 2022, our park was bought by Lakeshore Management. Since then, our lot rent has gone up $180. This year, they told us there'd be no rent increase, and then turned around and started charging us for utilities like water and trash. All these increases, and yet we get little in return. These corporations just treat us inhumanely, changing the costs and the rules to squeeze more money out of us or push a certain type of people out. My neighbors and I live under constant threat of management. They hit us with lease violations for agreements we never even signed. They nitpick, looking for reasons to force us out of our own homes. Just last week, we got another notice, either spend hundreds, if not thousands, on changes to our homes, or they'll start the eviction process. What they forget is that we're a community. We've been here for decades. We don't just need housing, we deserve dignity and respect. If it were affordable, I'd stay there for my whole life. It's home, but now I don't know if I'll be able to. But I do know this, it's that we have to stand up for our homes, and this bill will help us do that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Ms. Melfi, please introduce yourself for the record, present your testimony, and after that, we have Cecil Smith.
Hi, my name is Bree Moffey. I live in Cimarron Park in Lake Elmo, Minnesota. I'm the president of our Residents Association, and I represent 450 families that urgently need your leadership in support of this impactful bill now. The community I live in is charged the highest rent in the state, currently at $1,019 a month. Our lot rent has increased by over 30% over 5 years. Our lot rent is only part of the cost of our homeownership. We also pay property taxes, homeowners insurance, and have full mortgages. The lot rent is just for the dirt our house is placed on. This is not like renting an apartment or a townhouse. The out-of-state private equity firms that own our park are also in the business of real estate and sell manufactured homes. They are highly motivated to evict homeowners and replace old homes with new homes so that they benefit from the sale and the high interest rates. Since 2020, our evictions have increased from an average of 3 per year to currently over 40, and I'm only speaking about legal evictions. If you are evicted, you lose the home you worked hard to pay for and are forced to hand over the keys to an out-of-state equity firm. Living in Cimarron can be described in no other way as pure hell. Residents are faced with fear tactics and hostility from park management. Amenities and services are closing and reduced year after year. Maintenance such as removing dead trees, sweeping the streets, and up-to-code safe lighting are non-existent. Homes are being stolen by the park owners. Landlord abuse is the reality we live in every single day, and the means of government enforcement are severely lacking. I'd like to share my neighbor Jim and his service dog Emma's experience. Jim is a disabled veteran who bravely served his country overseas. He's the heart of our community and will take care of any resident in need. He was disabled in combat serving his country and suffered a traumatic brain injury and now lives on a fixed income. Jim lives every day in fear of being priced out of his own home. Jim also proudly serves his community on our Residents Association board and always pays his rent on time. He was recently targeted by park management and evicted for unreasonable reasons like having fake flowers in flower pots, decorative lattice under his deck, and a handicap parking sign. The stress of the eviction process and ongoing harassment from management has impacted his mental and physical health. He sacrificed his life for our country and deserves to feel safe and at a bare minimum have housing stability. I boldly ask that you do the right thing and support this bill. Private out-of-state equity firms are not your constituents. The people in this room and 180,000 of us not able to be here today are your constituents. This bill is reasonable for both park owners and residents alike. Doing nothing right now is preventing hardworking Minnesotans from living in our homes with dignity and financial security. I cannot watch another family be displaced and homeless. I can't watch Jim and Emma Jean go through hell again. I do not want other parks in the state to pay $1,019 a month in lot rent before action is taken. Please take action now. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Again, we cannot have outbursts, but thank you for also sharing Jim and Emily's story. We appreciate you coming to the committee. Mr. Smith, please introduce yourself for the record, present your testimony, and after that will be Mark Brunner.
Chair Port, members of the committee, my name is Cecil Smith. I am President and CEO of the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, known as MHA. MHA is an industry nonprofit representing 2,300 members and over 320,000 rental housing units in the state. I'm here today to respectfully raise MHA's opposition to Senate File 2691, Section 8, and specifically speak only to Section 8. MHA does not represent manufactured housing, but we care about all housing. Housing economists are only occasionally united in their opinion, but when it comes to rent control, they are. The vast majority of economists, including Paul Krugman, raise red flags about rent control for one simple reason: it does not work. The unintended consequences outweigh the benefits. Today, the country looks to St. Paul as an example of the negative consequences of rent control. While this proposal is narrowly focused on a specific type of housing, it will eventually mean broader avoidance and disinvestment in Minnesota's housing market. MHA has consistently opposed rent control policies which create disincentives for construction of new properties and investment in existing properties. Enacting Senate File 2691, Section 8 will establish a 3% cap on rent increases for manufactured home parks. Enforcing rent control on manufactured home parks will negatively affect an important affordable housing option in Minnesota. If the goal is to create and preserve affordable housing affordability for low and middle income manufactured home park dwellers, then the state needs to consider other options. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Brunner, and then after that, Dave Zeck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark Brunner, the Manufactured Modular Home Association of Minnesota. MMHA was formed in 1951 and speaks for the nearly 900 manufactured home communities in Minnesota, comprising nearly 50,000 home sites, along with the builders of manufactured and modular homes. There are approximately 15 plants in the state. Regarding the bill, we have several concerns ranging from eliminating fundamental property rights, imposing rent control that is recognized both locally and nationally as a failure in controlling rent, and there are a variety of what appear to be one-off incidents that may have occurred dealing with the need for an arborist to remove a tree branch, not able to charge a resident for damage that they may have actually caused relating to utilities to have those utilities fixed. There are a few provisions in the bill that we're not opposed to, but would suggest some tweaks to make them more workable. The provision on 3.2, limiting a late fee for delinquent rent not to exceed 8%. We don't have a concern with that. However, we do think that it would be better referencing 504B and that limitation on a fee of 8% there, so that you get homes that are both on owner-occupied and rentals under the same statute. So that would be one suggestion we have there. Concern we have is on line 3.1, creating habitability covenants for trees as safety hazards. Really lacks any necessity. In a nutshell, it gives a third party, the arborist, authority over a private property owner when dealing with tree branches. It creates liability issues for the property owner if the arborist, say, does not allow a tree branch to be removed and then the branch falls on the home or hits an individual who, where does the liability fall? Obviously, it's going to be on the property owner. In Minnesota, there are these 800, 900 communities. Most are in greater Minnesota. Where are you going to find an arborist to travel to give an opinion on whether a tree branch needs to be cut down? And obviously, you're going to increase costs, increase rents, and you're going to be up against the rent control provision.
Please wrap up your testimony, Mr. Bruner.
So, Madam Chair, overall, we're opposed to the bill. Rent control would be very damaging. This actually repeals an agreement we worked out with the advocates a year ago that puts in place a statute that took effect in 2024, allowing opportunity to purchase a community. The residents in Minnesota have a right now that, maybe
Thank you. Please wrap up your testimony.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Zek, welcome back to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record, begin your testimony, and after that will be Dustin Brockmeyer.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Dave Zek. I'm a community operator in Blaine, Minnesota. I'm going to try to skim through this so I can beat that buzzer. I'm probably not going to make it, but if they don't start cheering, I'll probably get through it. So, got one smile? Man. Okay. We talked about the trees. A couple things that aren't contemplated because people don't talk to people. I don't control a lot of the trees in my community. Trees that are with city buffers, trees that are neighboring, trees from other places, lots of things. We've never used an arborist. We had about $80,000 worth of tree damage this summer because of a storm. The last trees that were taken care of a month later were those that were responsible to the city. So I don't know how that works out. Speak strongly against the issue of rent control. The concept of 3%, man, you guys don't live by 3%. My city doesn't, my county doesn't, my garbage man doesn't. Property taxes this year, ours went up 25%. Last year for 10%. Looks like next year it'll be 20% again. To suggest that somebody can operate, that the rent is different somehow than the entire universe we live in, I'm kind of baffled by that. I think the clause in the bill that peels resident co-ops away from the 3% requirement is an obvious concession that they know that that's not a reasonable amount, that they know they can't live by that. So they don't think they should be bound by it. We do use an electronic fund process to collect our rent. Our residents love it. We have about 70% of our residents do it. I'm not sure based on the requirements that in this bill that our process meets that requirement, so we would probably wind up discontinuing it just because of the liability that's created in the bill if something isn't right. I don't think that's going to make, that's not a great deal for my residents. It's a great process. Obviously don't support the right to purchase. We don't support the concept that we should negotiate a deal with somebody and then hand that offer over to somebody else. In a requirement that the bill doesn't even require them to match it or meet it, it just says we're supposed to take their offer and consider it. They're not even acknowledge that they're going to meet it. I think overall, I think I'm going to acknowledge that there are some, I think the lesson for today is there are bad actors in all acts of life. The question is what we do with those bad actors and how you process them and what happens to other people that are still showing up every day trying to do their job.
We'll do questions after testimony. Thank you, Senator Draheim. Thank you, Mr. Zek. Mr. Brockmeyer, and then we'll move to our two virtual testifiers after that. Mr. Brockmeyer.
Good afternoon. My name is Dustin Brockmeyer with Brockmeyer Properties. Our family is celebrating 50 years of ownership of manufactured home parks. We own parks in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and South Dakota. So I guess we fall into the term that we're multi-park owner. We have over 1,200 families that reside in our communities. Our communities are safe, and we charge a fair land lease. I heard someone from the neighboring park in Chaska, Brandondale. I guess I would be the other neighboring park. So I understand where she's coming from. I have reviewed your bill 2681, and I feel like there's some, or 91, and I feel there's some adjustments that could be worked. I don't necessarily have a problem with all of it, but there's some issues I do have. Starting with access by utility providers, I think that's already covered in all of our easements, so I think that's just an overly stated thing that we can remove from there. It doesn't really, it's already covered. Habitat towards trees and present safety and hazards. Trees are extremely important to our health. Trees provide shelter and shade. Trees increase our own moral and happiness. They help us feel good. Trees are very important. In the past 3 years, we have paid over $280,000 in tree removal in our communities, plus countless hours of maintenance staff maintaining and trimming. We have replanted hundreds of trees. The unintended result of this bill will be removal of all trees in mobile home parks. I don't think that's the goal. I think we have to look at that. We want to keep trees in our parks because that is related to affordability, and it also is happiness. Rent control. I do not support anything with rent control. Inflation over the past 3 years has been an average of nearing 6%. Our property tax and city utilities, fees, wages, contractors, equipment, tanks, supplies.
Please wrap up your testimony.
Wrap it up?
Yes.
Oh, okay. These have increased significantly over the past several years, and 6% is just, we're seeing overly, government's spending too much. They're charging us too much. If you're going to go after rent control, go after the property taxes. Get our taxes to quit going up so much. Get the cities to quit raising your utilities by 10% a year. Figure out a way to get that resolved. Not after us. Opportunity to purchase. We negotiated something 2 years ago. I expect that was a good negotiation. I would prefer to leave it the way it was, so I ask you to vote no on this. If the goal is to force local owners to leave the business, I understand what you're trying to do. If you want us to build more parks and grow our business, grow our industry, then let's try to talk about some solutions that will make more parks be built.
Thank you, Mr. Brockmeyer.
Yep, thank you very much. I ask you to vote no. Thank you.
We'll go to Michelle Carlson virtually. Ms. Carlson, if you can come on camera and come off mute, introduce yourself and present your testimony. To 2 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Chairport and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak against Senate File 2691. My name is Michelle Carlson. I'm a second-generation manufactured home community owner and licensed real estate broker with Mike Ives Realty in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. I'm 3 hours north of you. I've worked over 25 years in real estate and specializing in manufactured housing property management, active voice for affordable housing, and I oversee over 1,200 home sites within 6 communities in the state of Minnesota, including metro area and greater Minnesota. I was raised in a manufactured home, and my first home that I purchased was a manufactured home. One of my largest communities is at Zenith Terrace in Duluth. We've owned that community for almost 45 years. Very proud of it, providing non-subsidized affordable housing for the Duluth area. And we are long-term advocates for affordable housing. Many of my residents have lived with me for 20 years and longer. We're a very strong reputation in our communities as giving back to the neighborhoods and being a great place to live. My concerns with this bill are simply that this bill would severely diminish my ability to operate my business at the highest level for my residents. In essence, it takes my property rights away, and it doesn't give me that opportunity for the future if I do wish to sell. The bill is based on false premise that manufactured home community rents are unreasonably skyrocketing statewide. And for many communities, such as mine, my rents have remained consistent with increases averaging between 3.5% and 4% annually. For many of us, we didn't raise rents during that COVID time to help alleviate additional burdens to our residents. We worked with our residents, and now for you to unfairly impose a rent control across the board at 3% when operating expenses and costs have increased much higher, restricting us in that sense we would not be able to offset our expenses, and it would be detrimental not only to us, but ultimately to our residents as well. I'm in the process of building a new community in greater Minnesota, but if this bill truly becomes law, I'm going to revisit that with my partners and in our desire to develop a community in a restrictive rent-controlled state. It probably would not happen.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. If you can wrap up your testimony, please.
I would like to say that let's alleviate affordable housing in our state today. We need affordable, non-subsidized workforce housing, and land lease community owners are the largest advocates of affordable housing. This legislation would only deter development of affordable housing, hurting both homeowners and community owners. Support manufactured housing, don't hurt it. Please do not support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. And our final testifier, Mark Lambert. Mr. Lambert, if you can come on camera and take yourself off mute, introduce yourself for the record, and provide your 2 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Chairport, and members of the committee. I'm Mark Lambert with Summit Management, based in Stillwater, a developer of multifamily housing and owner of several manufactured home communities in the state of Minnesota. I'd like to address the opportunity of purchase that you've heard about previously. As a real estate broker and attorney, and respecting the time I have, I want to focus on the portion of the opportunity to purchase that was negotiated by the very advocates, or some of the very advocates that are here, and the community owners just 2 years ago, and became effective only last year. The new law hasn't even had a chance to work. The opportunity to purchase law was long negotiated agreement in the legislative session between the chief offer of the opportunity to purchase bill and the community owners, and it does provide residents and the nonprofits a strict legal notice requirement from the owner of the community who's giving thought to selling or evaluating an offer to purchase their community. The new opportunity to purchase law in effect in 2024 requires a community owner who receives an offer to purchase their community, and if that owner desires to sell, to mail notice to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, which maintains a list of interested nonprofits, and to each resident household by regular mail. The detailed notice must indicate that the park owner has received an offer it's considering, and it must disclose a price range and material terms and conditions upon which the community owner would consider selling the community, and consider any offer made by a representative acting on behalf of the residents or a nonprofit that will become its representative. The new opportunity purchase law is fair to the residents and the nonprofit in that it puts them on notice that a sale might be occurring. And that, I believe, is exactly what the bill author cited as the reason for this bill at the beginning of this hearing. And it is fair to us community owners in that it allows us the opportunity to negotiate to sell our property, as all of us would expect we have the right to do. In addition, the law also provided a reduction in capital gains tax if that owner chooses to sell to a nonprofit or to the residents. That's huge. There's a tax incentive. And frankly, I don't even know that that's been out there and you know, made available to people to know it's there. Despite having the law in this books, the advocates here today have not approached the Association of Community Owners with any issues that they thought needed to be addressed in the existing opportunity to purchase law. This bill is unnecessary, it's unfair, and it's not needed. Just remember.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Can you please conclude your testimony?
I will. This bill is unnecessary, unfair, and not needed. And I guess the closing point I would have is remember, there is nothing stopping the residents and nonprofits from approaching their own community owner about buying it. You don't need to have a first right of refusal to pick up the phone and ask a community owner if they're interested in selling their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Thank you to all the testifiers. Members, we will move to discussion. Right now, Senator Draheim, I have you first on my list.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Boldon, for bringing the bill forward. And, you know, I think for those in the audience, there's been a lot of people working in this area for years. And I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. There's a bipartisan group that have been working. I think mentioned multiple times there was an agreement between kind of the two groups a couple years ago that just took effect in August. And here we're back trying to change it. And, you know, I'm a little concerned, and I don't know what your plan is for this. I have a bunch of amendments I would love to offer. Do you want me to go through them now, or we're laying this over?
We are not laying this over. This needs to go to Commerce, to its primary jurisdiction.
Then buckle up. We got a little bit of time then. So first, just so everybody knows, we have worked on this. We did have an agreement. Both sides came together, both gave in a little bit, and here 6 months later, we're trying to change it. You know, the comment from one of the residents about the 8% hike, I get it. 8% is a lot of money. I understand that. But I think a couple of the park managers or owners mentioned, you know, my home county is looking at a 10% property tax increase next year. Just property taxes, 10% next year. You got insurance has gone up double digit, probably for the commercial properties, probably tripled in the last 2 years. Utilities have gone up, labor has gone up. You have to pay people that work to do services or employees more. So $50 a month is a lot, I get it. But I think the input costs are probably greater than what the increase went in the last couple of years. I think, Senator Boldon, you mentioned the cost to move trailers. And, you know, when we have that dedicated fund, I don't know how familiar you are with that. So there is a fund if a park is sold that we can, and I checked, with nonpartisan staff, it's about $2 million in that fund. So if a park is sold or closed down, that they will do up to $14.5 to help move those trailers. Just so you're aware, I don't know if you were aware or not with that. There is money that's paid for lot rent that goes into that fund. It's not much, it's $15 a year, but that is something that comes out of it that I don't think most residents realize. Now, some might bill it separate, I get it, some don't, but it's $1.25 per month per state statute of lot rent that's supposed to go to that fund. That's what's in code. It's 327C.095 subdivision, whatever. So just so people are aware of that. you know, I guess looking at, I guess first I'd like to ask Mr. Dave Zeck or Dustin about selling their properties, if they've ever been involved or approached by tenants to buy out a park.
Mr. Zeck?
Madam Chair, Senator Graham, not by residents. I received correspondence of various types over the years from various entities, local and national, inquiring if our property's for sale. As time has progressed, they've probably gotten a little bolder. You know, now I'll get probably a letter of intent that spells out some basic terms. I think I got last one. I got one of those maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Probably within a very similar time frame, I received a letter from University of Wisconsin River Falls. They were doing a study on behalf of North Country to ask if we were would be interested in discussing resident ownership of communities in general. It wasn't specific to me. I assume they had a mailing list. So discussion of why residents become owners of communities or don't, they keep trying to pass legislation to get to the front of the line. In my mind, they haven't shown themselves as a group, whether it's North Country, wherever, to be a market player. No, they've never said, I've never heard anybody say, oh, we got outbid on a property. We said, well, we just didn't get to buy it. Now they're even taken out of the section of the law that says if we publicly list our park and notify them that they don't even want that in statute. That's confusing to me. I list my property, I have to notify the residents, they have opportunity to decide what they want to do. That's actually stricken in this bill. That confuses me. That was something I thought was probably beneficial to them.
Thank you, Mr. Zeck. Mr. Brockmeyer?
I have been approached by one of my communities up in up north, and they by North Country to purchase it and do whatever they would do. We never quite got together, more than just a few small conversations. I would not be opposed to selling it, but I'm not going to sell it to outside areas. It would have to be to the tenants and not to someone else. So I would say that this could be a good thing, but it also has a slippery thing. I mean, if you want to buy the property you live in, yeah, you're right. Let's talk to the property owner, and they would probably consider your offer, the people that live in the community's offer, a higher priority than someone else's. So, but I have no interest in selling anything.
Thank you, Mr. Brockmeyer. Thank you, gentlemen.
Can I follow?
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you both. So my next question, I have one more question for both of you, guys don't mind. So why don't you think more co-ops aren't involved in transactions? So, you know, why isn't there more sales to co-ops, if I could, if you have an opinion?
Mr. Zeck?
Madam Chair, Senator Graham, I don't know their side of the ledger, why they don't accomplish that. From, like the point I referenced, if I'm sitting at work and trying to decide who I should respond to, I get fairly significant qualifying offers from qualifying buyers, or a letter from a college doing a survey on behalf of something. I mean, I think the expectation, if that's going to happen, I have to be the initiating force to try to accomplish it. We've had members sell parks to their residents before, you know, there was any legislation. I don't know if I'm going to fall into that category when I decide I'm done trying to accomplish my life goals in affordable housing. But I think they have to somehow become more viable, viewed as a more viable source to community owners when they come to sell, as opposed to being somebody who's trying to wedge shoring into the process after somebody's got a deal. I mean, you have to be aggressive.
Thank you, Mr. Zeck. Senator Boldon, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think what we are seeing, and there's a lot to respond to here, but I'll just say in terms of this piece, what we are seeing, and I sort of laid out the ecosystem of these private equity firms that are kind of swooping in and this is their model and this is happening more and more. Folks, tenants who, may want to pay, want to purchase and be able to pay, a market rate offer, cannot compete with these private equity firms that swoop in and offer, an all-cash offer at twice the market rate. Like it's not a level, fair playing field. And so that's what they're asking for, is a bit of fairness in this process.
Can I respond, Chair?
Senator Drahan?
Thank you. I guess, I've approached landowners before and multiple times and told them I was interested in a piece of property. And sometimes it took 3-4 times before they said yes. The timing has to be right. So I guess my advice to the residents, if they think this is the path they want to go down, they should be talking to the owners on an annual basis and say, if you ever think time is right to sell, we would be interested in trying to figure out how to purchase it. I think, you're penalizing the owners and their families and saying they can't sell to whoever based on whatever the motivation. And most of the time, having been in commercial real estate for a lot of years, most of the time people decide to sell, it's a life event. They're sick, their spouse is sick, divorce, loss of somebody close to them. And normally it's a time limit. And the way your bill's drafted, it's going to add months, in my opinion, to the sale of a property. And the number one thing to kill a deal or a transaction is time, because time costs money. So I don't want to ramble any more on that, but I appreciate your guys' comments. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add about why don't you think there's more transactions to co-ops, because that's what the bill has to do. But if not, I'd go on to the next subject if I could, Chair.
Yes, do you want to bring your amendments?
Sure, we'll start with,
number.
I think, section 6.29, or not section, line 6.29. And I don't have any typed amendments, so they're going to be oral.
Okay.
I didn't know that this was moving on, Chair. I apologize.
I think it has multiple committee steps yet in front of it.
Well, if that's the case, I don't think the bill's ready to move on. So I probably will have an amendment to change that. So on this one, it says each resident of the manufacturing home park. And this has to do with notices, Chair. And Senator Boldon, I hope you would expect, I think, each unit instead of resident. So when you say resident, is that a 4-year-old child? Or is it the unit itself? And hopefully they share the mail within their unit.
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. I appreciate the desire for clarification. My suggestion would be maybe each adult resident versus every unit, wanting to be sure that, everyone in the home, there may be, roommates or adult, folks sharing a unit who don't share mail, but I would be okay with amending that, changing that to each adult resident.
So,
Senator Drahan.
Thank you. So, looking at the cost, and I don't know, I assume there's some people that are maybe a little mobile that live in the units. If I look at my daughter, she's 20. Sometimes she's in my house, sometimes she isn't. So if we have it in statute, I think that could cloud things down the road, because I didn't notify my daughter that might only be with me 3 months of the year when she's home from college. So I think each unit is reasonable. I think each resident could be cloudy, because what classifies as a resident? Each leaseholder, who's on the lease, who's on the lot rent, so I think the appropriate would be each unit or each lot you know, unless there's a separate address. So I think, you know, you don't get a utility bill to each resident of a property, you get it to the unit.
Senator Boldon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hear what you're saying, and again, this bill has multiple stops, so there will be perhaps ongoing conversation about many of these pieces. So I would be okay with changing resident to residence to sort of get at what you're asking for.
I guess I'm going to keep my amendment to change, delete on line 6.29, resident, and replace it with unit.
Senator Draheim, okay.
Or each address.
So Senator Boldon suggested residence.
Do we have, council, do we have residence as a defined term? Or what would you recommend here?
Ms. Painter?
Sorry to put you on the spot. Not really.
Madam Chair, members, to be honest, I'd recommend you sort this out after committee and prepare an amendment for the next committee stop so we can make sure we put some thought into it and come up with the best word.
Senator Boldon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am happy to continue conversation with you, Senator Draheim, and council to be sure we get the right word to reach the intent that you are speaking to.
So in Chair, Senator Boldon, you agree that sending 5 pieces of mail to one location is kind of redundant?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Draheim, yes, I hear what you're saying. I hear the added cost of that. I will say I do still have a concern about there may be 2 adults who share a household that don't share mail, but I'm open to modifying to send one piece to the residence unit, whatever we decide to call it.
Chair, I withdraw that oral amendment.
Thank you, Senator Draheim. Your next question or amendment?
I think Section 8, you know, to me, you know, we worked hard to get an agreement, which I didn't think we would get, and 6 months later, we're trying to change it. So I would like to undo 323 to 329 and revert back to only 2. So any of the changes, any of the underlying language, delete. And have the agreed upon language that was worked on for multiple years left as is.
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. I would oppose this amendment. I think, and I want this as a good opportunity for me to speak to this a little bit. A lot of the kind of conversation we heard about rent control does not apply to this. And, you know, there may be cause for us to have a conversation about rent stabilization, but that really isn't what this is. And also to note, it really is apples and oranges as we are talking about this lot rent versus other typical landlord-tenant rent situations. As kind of was mentioned, the lot rent pays for the dirt that is under these homes. And so I also will note that there is the provision, I'll point members to lines 3.26 through 3.28. A park owner may prove a rent increase is reasonable by clear and convincing evidence that the increase is necessary for the health and safety of residents. So if there is a need for that lot rent to go up by more than 3%, there is a provision in a way that is allowable under this language. So members, I would ask for this amendment to be opposed.
Senator Abler.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll address the amendment, but also just have a few comments, and that'll be done with the comments to the bill. I think in this bill, there's 4 groups of people as well, Madam Chair. There's some tenants who are very happy with their park because they have a really nice landlord. I think 3 of those are here today, have testified. 1 was online, 2 are in person at least. And I don't think that, and then there's the landlords there who are treating their people very well. And in the same, and there's in HOAs, there's some people who are living in places where they have been totally predated upon. Is it predator? Not not in the past, but they've been, I think predation is wrong. And I think that taking advantage of people who have nowhere to go is absolutely wrong. And I'm not a party to any of the past changes here. And I think maybe at some point this amendment, the word inflation might be better if you're just trying to get away from the rent control thing, which I guess I'm on the side of it suddenly because I think people in living in light tech property shouldn't be gouged with whatever the market can bear. And so it's the same discussion over and over again, same topic. How do you find a way to the people concerned about this from the side of the management side? How do you control greed? You control greed by having ethics like those three people have had, Mr. Zeck and Mr. Breakmeyer and Ms. Carlson, have clear evidence that they are concerned with their people. They're charging reasonable rent increases based upon some sensible thing besides maximizing profits from people who are literally trapped in their place. And that's why this bill is here. You know, will this bill get across the finish line? I don't know, but I support the effort. And I understand Senator Draheim and whoever else is going to speak about this with their concerns, but these people had something better to do today than come here and beg for their financial stability in their future and not pay $1,000 of rent a month where Mr. Carlson and Ms. Carlson, Mr. Breakmeyer, and Mr. Zeck would probably charge them $590 because that's enough. And they accomplish things, and they don't keep nickel and diming and adding them on. So, and I don't know, I'm not going to comment about more of the bill, but that's why we're here. And if there wasn't, well, I mean, if there wasn't abusive behaviors going on and predatory actions by people who do it because they can, it wouldn't be here. And, you know, that's all. So, I think maybe just going forward, use the word inflation. For now, I like your bill just to be able to move along. So I'm going to vote on some of these. I'm going to be quiet on some of these. But I hope that this committee, the committee recognizes the issues, and the people voting to change this bill around and make it better from their point of view appreciate that as well. And they're struggling. I'm not trying to give you motives, Senator Draheim, but your motives are the best. Stick with that. But to the people doing this, it's wrong. And I give my conscience speech before. I'm going to give it over and over again, Madam Chair. Then I'm actually probably done for the day here. But some things are wrong. You know, your mother taught you right and wrong. Your dad taught you right and wrong. Some things are wrong. It's wrong to take advantage of people who have no means other than your ability to be wrong, to be abusive to them. And so to the equity people, good for you. Get a fair return. Treat the people like you wish like your grandma was there or your mom or somebody. And you wouldn't see any bill like this. And to the people wondering why you're not selling more of these things to co-ops, $6 million for 100 units is $60,000 a unit. These people don't have $60,000. Although if they knew what you're going to jack the rent up to, they would go cash in money just to save themselves, because they're going to be living there in 20 years. They will have paid more than $60,000, and that's just wrong. So I don't know. Call up your mom and ask her how you should run your places. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Abler. Senator Lucero?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the continuing conversation on this. Madam Chair and Senator Boldon, so you mentioned the dirt underneath the manufactured home. So if property taxes go up by 10%, will the owner then, under this provision, be able to increase the rent by 8%?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Lucero, for the question. I might invite Ms. Jimenez up to perhaps speak more to this, but my understanding is often it is and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong about this, I think often it is the homeowner that is paying the property tax.
So, but what about
Please, no outbursts are allowed. Ms. Jimenez.
Yes, thank you, Chair Port. Thank you, Chair Lucero. So it's a little bit more complicated than that. The homeowners do pay the property taxes, and they would pay any increased costs. There is property tax that is assessed to the land. It is assessed at a lower rate, 0.75 or 1%, depending on how much is homeowner occupied, which is lower than what is for like rental housing, which is 1.25%. So they're already getting a break, right? They treat it differently. And then I would say that 10%, for example, if that's the property tax increase, it does not equate necessarily to, all right, we're going to increase taxes 10% across the way per resident, especially when you have, 400 lots, 500 lots as some of these larger places. I understand the concern. I think that this 3% number represents a lot of those issues, and 3% each year, 3, 6, 9, 12, right? And we still have the exception there for the health and safety of residents, as if there's a pipe burst or something along those lines.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that was just one of the increases. What if so I'll put some together. If Madam Chair and Senator Boldon, if the property tax in common spaces, not individual lots, increases, plus the cost of liability insurance that the owner has on the park, plus the cost of maintenance, maybe due to safe and sick time mandates, increases in minimum wage, inflationary pressures driving up wages, the cost of equipment that's used, the cost of everything. If the sum of the costs year over year increases by 10%, will the park owner be permitted to increase to match their increased cost?
Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you, Chair Port. Thank you, Chair Lucero. Under this bill as written, it is 3% is presumed to be reasonable, and then the remaining is for health and safety. So it's stricter than covering some of those costs. I believe there's been other bills and there's other ideas around what that number could look like. But to answer your question, no, it wouldn't address that specific issue for a single year cost.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. We heard articles referenced by Senator Boldon from recent articles around the state. Here's an article that just came out yesterday. This is Axios. St. Paul rent control debate heats up again. Not going to read the whole thing, just reading select portions. Why it matters. Housing construction has stalled. And while rent control is one of the many reasons for stagnation, supporters are loosening regulations to signal to developers that St. Paul is open for business. Next paragraph. Developers have said rent control makes it difficult to obtain financing. A lending institution is not going to lend to developers who are unable to demonstrate certainty in future ability to pay for the financing obligations. We have a history of when this is enacted, and St. Paul, I believe, was also 3%. Look at what happened. We can see the collapse of new construction. We've discussed many times in this committee, Madam Chair, that supply is needed. And as I've already mentioned, I'm a strong proponent of manufactured home parks. I'm a strong supporter of those who are living in manufactured homes. We need more supply. And if this rent control, just the one provision in this entire bill, if this gets enacted at 3%, and we just heard the answer, no, the owner will not be able to increase the rent commensurate with the increase in sum of costs. If it increases greater than 3%, we're going to have another example of what we saw with St. Paul. An evaporation of new manufactured home parks that is going to have an adverse impact on the increased supply that we desperately need. And I think for that reason alone, we absolutely need to support the Draheim amendment here, because we're just going to repeat history. And we can't, we're running out of time in terms of having to formulate policy that's going to increase supply. This is 100% the opposite of what we need to achieve. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lucero. Senator Boldon, I'll give you the mic in just a moment, but we have seen 40 years of dysregulation or very low regulation on manufactured home communities. And in that period of time, we have seen almost no new manufactured home communities across the state of Minnesota. I think this is a bit of a red herring on what is charging, what is causing these things. We have not put this in, and there have been no new manufactured home communities across the state of Minnesota. So I don't think we can blame rent control for that. I don't think we can blame regulation, over-regulation for that, because there's been very little regulation until these last few years, as we've been discussing it. Senator Boldon, I'll go to you, and then would like to take a vote on the Draheim amendment.
Sure. Can I comment after?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the discussion. Again, I would just go back to, we're really talking about apples and oranges here. It is not the same thing. And I would also note, to your point, Madam Chair, no new parks have been built in the past 50 years. So development is really not the issue here. The issue is the predatory behaviors and actions of these companies, driving people out of their homes, evicting people from their homes, and that is the issue we're trying to solve for here, which is clearly an issue that is ongoing and persistent. And so I would encourage a no vote on the amendment.
Senator Draheim, final comments before we take a vote on your amendment?
Thank you. And I'll try to be brief. Just a couple clarifications. The part of the reason there hasn't been many homes built, and there has been in the last 50 years, there have been parks that have opened. I know 2 in my area in North Mankato that are relatively new, last 30 years, 20 years, whatever it's been. But we realize that there is a problem. And we, myself and others on this committee, and way before most of you guys were involved in housing, we tried to bring the light some of the concerns within the parks. Infrastructure was the big one. And having the funds available so we could reinvest in our existing parks. And that was done by a bipartisan group. And, I've been one of the loudest voices of trying to get resources to these communities. And this isn't a diss on the co-op concept, what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be practical. And Senator Boldon, have you ever done a commercial loan?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Draheim, no, I have not.
Okay, so
Senator Draheim.
When you go to a bank for a commercial loan, it's a little different than your mortgage. So most lenders will do a 3, 5, or 7-year balloon. And you borrow whatever dollar amount you want. They amortize it, meaning spread out the payments, calculation over 20 or 30 years. But they have a balloon that comes up in 3, 5, or 7 years, depending on the bank and the situation and the rate, blah, blah, blah. So I guess my question to you, Senator Boldon, under this provision, under Section 8, and this is a real life example, it wasn't that long ago I could have borrowed money at 3% on a commercial paper, and now it'd be 8%. And that's a lot of money. And would I be able to increase rents the year after I had to make an adjustment? And you don't know what the rate's going to be till you go talk to your banker. So would that qualify under your exemptions if I had to refinance and the rate doubled or tripled in that time period?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Draheim, chair question. So the exception, the provision is for health and safety. So no, I think given the example you are stating, no, that it would not meet that definition. I would also just note, even one of the testifiers said they have been able to keep their increases stable at 3.5% to 4%, which is over the 3%, but not by much. I will also note in talking with some of the homeowners in these parks that are involved in the cooperatives, they are able to maintain their lot rents stable with no increases or increases like $4 or $6. And so I think to say that this is impossible, I think just it isn't reflective of what we are seeing.
Thank you, Senator Boldon. Senator Draheim, I'll go back to you, but I will say I do intend to take a vote on this bill at 2:45. That's the latest we can be here. So use your time as you see fit. Senator Draheim.
Thank you. You know, the one-offs are what we have to plan for. You know, I don't expect someone to raise lot rent every year, and if there's a problem if they are. You know, over what you're suggesting. So with that, we can just vote on.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Graham just brought up an excellent point. I hadn't thought of the balloon, the financing example. I've got commercial buildings, Madam Chair, and Senator Boldon. I have a rate adjustment. So the loan that I have on one of my commercial properties, it amortized over 20 years. And not balloons, it's a rate adjustment every 5 years. That reset is coming up for me here, the December of 2025 here, on one of my buildings. My rate last reset 5 years ago. Well, where were interest rate, and my rate is directly connected to prime. It's prime, I think, plus 2%, something like that, 2.5%. So where were we at? Think about this, 5 years ago. So in 2020, where were interest rates at? So I'm sitting right now at, I think my interest rate's like 3.29%, something to that effect. I'm set to, and I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know where we'll be in December. But I have to negotiate a lease with my tenant last year in anticipation of where I'm going to reset 18 months into the future. And so that I'm fully bracing myself for an interest rate reset from the 3s to probably the upper 8s. It's not a health and safety issue. And it's not a property tax issue, as some are going to say that it's lot rents. It's a real issue for financing. And so the situation, Madam Chair and Senator Boldon, is you're suggesting that there are some scenarios out there where people can increase $3 or $5 or $6. But the reality is there are people that have owned parks for maybe 20, 30 years, and they own them free and clear. They're not financing. But eventually, those are going to have to change hands. And then they're going to have to, and it's a very common in the real estate industry where people that have been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, they have their property paid off. They're not charging rent as high as they could be. They're not charging at market rate. And people are living in these various forms of investment properties, and the beneficiaries of non-market rate rent, because the owners have them paid off or are in terms that are substantially different. But when that changes hands, eventually that is no longer going to be the case. And so it's going to be current rates. And this is going to prevent that. And we heard, Madam Chair and Senator Boldon, that you're suggesting parks haven't been built in decades. Well, what are local municipalities, and this gets to another, but what restriction of new mobile or manufactured home parks? That's a variable. There are other things that are at play, other forces that are limiting that. So all those forces being held equal, you're adding on top of it, you're piling on, and you're going to make it even more restrictive and less likely. And so again, that is an excellent scenario, the reset here, and it's very real, and this is going to prohibit directly related to financing. And we're seeing this very thing with other articles. I won't pull them up, but we've all seen the articles in the last 12 months of what's happening with the commercial properties in the metro area, like downtown Minneapolis and other downtowns around the country. They're all bracing for their interest rate resets. That's certainly true of manufactured home parks as well, and this does not account for that very reality. Man, this is the opposite of what this committee needs to do in terms of making housing more affordable and increasing the supply in Minnesota. Please vote in favor of the Draheim amendment. Thank you.
Members, we have The Draheim amendment, which Ms. Painter will relay for us before we take a vote. Ms. Painter?
Madam Chair, members, the oral amendment would be page 3, line 22, delete section 8.
Members, all in favor of the Draheim amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Say no. No. The amendment is not adopted. Senator Draheim?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the discussion. Next is going to be section 6 on page 3, line 1 through line 3.16. I just see a lot of problems with this. The liability, I can see insurance companies coming in and doing a site visit, which is very common right now with commercial insurance, and demanding, especially diseased or dead trees, or, you know, and then an arborist in parts of my district. I bet you could find an arborist maybe at 2 of my 7 counties. So I think it needs work, and for now, I know it's moving on, Senator Boldon, but I recommend we delete it, and if they can get some other language, we could maybe look at it later.
Senator Draheim, I appreciate you raising this. Senator Boldon, I think I have a few questions about the language as well. I would like to continue working with you on this. I think there are important, good points here about safety and things like that, but I additionally have some questions. Members, this is our primary jurisdiction, so while it will go to Commerce and potentially state and local gov, if it moves forward, it will likely be in our policy bill. So we will see this again. But Senator Boldon, do you have a comment to Senator Draheim's?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. I'm very happy to continue working on this language. I understand there may be questions and want it to be workable. I will just say for the record, the intention nor the outcome of this is to have all trees removed from manufactured home parks. And I will just note, as there's talk about arborists, the first option is that the park owner can remove the tree branch themselves. And so it does not need to be an arborist in every circumstance. But very happy to continue to work on the language, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I apologize before I said Commerce and state and local. It's Commerce and Judiciary that this bill has to go to before it comes back to us. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator Boldon. So I look forward to I'll withdraw my amendment, and just know that if it comes back, we'll be spending more time on this bill. I also have concerns on page 7, page 6, subdivision 3, 6.8 through 6.25, 7.11 through 7.29. But Chair, I've been monopolizing your time. I know we only have a couple minutes left. But when the bill comes back, I think we better plan on at least 3 days for amendments. And I'm not joking. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Draheim. Senator Lucero?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might have some objection to 3 days of amendments. So we'll
I don't think you would be the only one, Senator Lucero.
well, again, thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Boldon. So I wanted to circle back to that piece we briefly discussed on the amendment part, that with the one word change. So I've had further opportunity to read this here, and I'm not convinced that the change that was made is getting at least what I think you're trying to get at. And so I'm going to just go back and just to add more context to the amendment, I'm going to start on line 6.26 on the previous page. So no park owner may accept any offer for sale. So an offer for sale, that makes sense. And then it goes on to speak about the notice. The notice required under this subdivision must be dated and indicate the price, terms, and conditions of an acceptable offer. So there's an offer for sale, and then an offer has been received and is found to be acceptable, not accepted, but acceptable. And then in the notice requirement, you're saying that the park owner, the conditions of the acceptable offer, the park owner has received to sell. So an offer has come in. An offer has been received from a buyer to a seller. Then it goes on, the notice must include the following verbatim statement. The park owner has received and is prepared to accept an outside offer to sell, lease, or transfer this park. So then we get to, now with that context, now we get to the amendment that you made. Upon a request of a resident, an owner must make available a copy of any acceptable offer to sell. That quite literally, Madam Chair, does not make any sense in what you're trying to achieve. So, and maybe I'm missing something, so that's why I'm trying to bring that context in here. Can you explain to me what is a copy of an acceptable offer to sell? What does that mean and look like?
Senator Boldon or Ms. Jimenez?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to defer to Ms. Jimenez, although I also may point to council, as I believe this was a recommendation from them.
Ms. Painter.
Madam Chair and Senator Lucero, I think the word agreement on line 7.8 implies that the agreement has been made, that there's been an acceptance of the offer, and since they need to have 60 days in which, before they accept the offer, it made more sense to make this say offer rather than agreement. That was a technical correction we suggested.
Senator Lucero.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, and then an offer can't be accepted because the language is prohibiting, it's receiving an offer, but it can't be accepted. It's prohibiting the it could be, to accept an offer is to execute the contract. And that can't happen per the language of the notification period. And so again, the verbiage, I'm just submitting here, it's very confusing. And what you're trying to achieve is after an offer comes in, that kicks off a 60-day period of which the notice goes out and then the terms of that offer that has been received. But as I understood in our earlier conversation when the amendment was up, I understood you to say that once a park owner makes a park available for sale, that's kicking off some 60-day period, and that's not what's happening. So that's why the language, as we adopted, it's not going to work in reality. So just throwing that out there. And then with that, we are at the 4-minute mark, and I've got about 4 more questions, but we'll offer that when it comes back to this committee. So thank you, Madam Chair.
These feel like fantastic notes for you to give to a fellow colleague on the Judiciary Committee who will go through the legal portions of that, which is an important piece of this. But I would like to bring us back to the reason that this bill is in front of us, which is actually the people sitting behind you. I thank you all for coming. I think the reason that manufactured housing was moved into this committee's jurisdiction this year for the first time instead of being in the commerce jurisdiction is because for the first time we're looking at manufactured housing, manufactured homes as housing, as people's homes rather than as property or a thing that you can make money off of or part of commerce. We're instead starting to look at it as housing and homes for people. That is, I believe, why we are having discussions like this. Is it complicated? Absolutely. Is it going to take continued conversation? Absolutely. But I appreciate that today, so many residents of parks came to tell their stories because I think that, particularly in this committee, is what should ground us as we move through these conversations. So appreciate that. We are at time, and so I would like to move this bill to commerce. Senator Boldon, do you have closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be brief. I appreciate this conversation. To Senator Draheim and Senator Lucero, my door is always open. I am happy to chat about any parts of this and would be interested in your other feedback that we didn't get to today. I will just end with a few things. There was a comment said today that this bill is unnecessary and not needed, and I find that frankly offensive, and I just want to name that. again, will point to the people behind me. This is absolutely necessary, and their stories are important and matter. And to Senator Abler's point of how to control greed, that is what is the issue before us, because that is what is happening. And so the last thing I'll say is just to reiterate 2 comments that were made by the testifiers, the people here who came to tell their stories, that they are real people trying to make a life, and that they don't just need housing, they deserve dignity and respect. That is absolutely true, and that is why we should take action on this bill.
Thank you, Senator Boldon. With that, Senator Boldon moves that Senate File 2691 as amended be recommended to pass and re-referred to the Commerce Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The motion prevails. Your bill is on the way to Commerce. Thank you all for your testimony. Members, a couple of scheduling, housekeeping things. We will have no committee next week on Tuesday, just Tuesday. You have to come back on Thursday. On Thursday, we will hear sort of the final bills that have come in that we need to hear before we make our budget plans, with plans then to present and sort of walk through the budget omnibus on April 1st. Fingers crossed, assuming we have targets and things like that. With that, we're at the end of our agenda for today, and there being no other business, this meeting is adjourned.